Welcome back to the table. Today, Ryan and I have something really cool on the table. It's one of my favorite games, Dead Reckoning, but it's not just Dead Reckoning. This is Dead Reckoning with the next Saga expansion, Letters of Marque. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about what Letters of Marque does to the game. But Ryan is also somewhat new to Dead Reckoning. He's just recently played it.
I recently played it, and this is one of those games where David's been talking about it for... before it came out. I finally played it, and it's one of those where I said, man, I wish I had just played this earlier. I instantly fell in love with it, loving to play it. And I want to play through some of these sagas, because what Dead Reckoning does that's interesting is it has these campaign boxes, these sagas, which Letters of Marque is one of those, but they all come with like a narrative saga and just an expansion that you could use with any of your games.
Yeah, much like some of his other games, John D. Clare, that is, the designer, he has some things in these sagas where it will introduce a card as you're experiencing it, and then that card becomes part of the game every time you play it if you want to. So these things can be played in any order. They can be played sort of on top of each other, one after another. But we're going to be talking about Letters of Marque today. And this does a few things. Let's talk about what it adds to the table in and of itself. You're going to see here across the top these empire boards. Now, first thing that should be said is these can be played in that saga fashion, but they can also be played, or at least this one can be played in any game of Dead Reckoning. You can just add this as an expansion. It's called Flags of the Old World. And there's going to be these two empire boards that represent these two empires that are now showing a little more interest in the seas, the high seas, than they did before. They've had stories of all these pirates and privateers going across the oceans, and they've heard these sort of stories and legends of magical items. So they're taking a little bit more interest in this. So part of this is going to be going out, getting some of those magical items, and maybe bringing them back to curry favor with these empires. There's two different empires, and each board is going to have these favor bonuses across the top, and then every player in the game is going to have a marker that moves up. And the markers are kind of interesting because they have two pieces. Yeah,
and this is something that I've said with a lot of games that let you move up and down on tracks. You have one that's your prime marker that tracks how far you've gotten on each one of these tracks with the different empires. And then if your cube drops, it actually just comes out of there. So you know how far you've gotten. You don't ever have to question, did I already get this reward or not? Which is something I think I've struggled with in other games where you move up and down tracks a lot. So I thought that was very interesting. And there's so many cool bonuses and rewards that you can get for going up those different tracks.
Yeah, some of those bonuses we'll get to in a second, but these are effectively going to let you do a lot of the things that the game itself lets you do. But it's just one more way to do them. So you can actually get some of the achievements and some of the things you want to get accomplished done maybe even a little more quickly if you're able to go out here and efficiently pick up some of these prime cargo tokens. What's a prime cargo token, you ask?
It's brand new.
These are part of this expansion, and they are all over the board at the beginning of the game. Each tile, as you reveal them, are going to get prime cargo tokens. The prime cargo are going to be black pearls. They're going to be moon salt. Or dragon fins. These are the three things, and they all do a variety of different things, because on the flip side of these tokens is where you'll find out whether it's a black pearl, one of those three things, but also what it does if you were to discard it. Part of the game is going to be going out here, discovering these tokens, which is flipping them over, and then picking them up. When you pick them up, if they're in the ocean, because each of these tiles can have up to two, one on the island and one floating around in the water.
You'll see that right here in this example. When you start, you'll start with one on every island as well.
Yeah, and if it's in the water, you can pick it up if it's already discovered. If it's on an island, you have to control the island just like you would normally for cargo. But the idea of these is to use them as you see fit, but also to bring them back to harbor to give them to these various empires. As you can see, one empire wants dragon fins and black pearls. The other one wants dragon fins and moon salt. When you come up to the harbor, you can trade those in, not both of them, but in either one of them, to move up, like Ryan described, on this track, unlocking some of these bonuses, maybe even getting to this space right here.
Yeah, that's kind of the meat of the expansion, this Letters of Marque. And for those who are history buffs, you probably already know Letters of Marque were a real thing. They were given out by the empires of the nations at the time to pirates to kind of fly under their banner effectively. And you're getting to do that. As soon as you reach that spot, you get to draw one of the Letters of Marque from that particular empire that gives you some kind of game-breaking ability. Effectively, it's almost like a cheat. You feel like you're cheating a little bit with these cards. They're that powerful, but they go to the person that is the farthest along on that track. So you might get to that point, grab one of those letters of marque, abuse its ability until somebody gets a little farther ahead of you on that track. They get to take that letter from you. So these are going to be going around the board a lot. And there are a few different letters of marque for each empire. So you're going to have a little bit of a chance to experience some different abilities as you play through the game.
Yeah, at least in the content that we have here, there's 2 letters of marque. And we actually don't have the physical versions of those, but we do have them digitally that we're putting up on screen right now. So each empire has 2 letters of marque. And in a game, both of those are going to be out. So you'll take one, and then the next player could take one. Or if they already have one, they can effectively kind of steal the other one from another player. So like Ryan said, they could be bouncing around the table. And these powers range from anything from increasing your hand size, which is something you're very familiar with if you've played Dead Reckoning, to like some more of those slightly more game-breaking feeling things that are kind of new where you're able to buy things for cheaper, effectively ongoing abilities that you want to try to have. Now, the interesting thing and dynamic that exists between these 2 empires is as you go up these tracks, you're currying favor with that empire, but the other empire is not such a big fan of that. So these other pieces, these other spaces right here, are going to make it so that you move back on this track. And like Ryan said earlier, when you do that, you're just going to move this cube part of this marker back so that you still have marked where you've gotten, but you're going to move back. Now, if you move back too far, things can get a little squirrely. If you move back all the way back before the start space, in fact, if for some reason you do something in the game, and there's all sorts of cards that might do this, and you move back beyond or behind the start space, you're going to get a bounty placed on you. And there's 3 different bounty spaces depending on how far you've moved back. At that point, you've got a bounty on you, and if people don't just sink your ship, but if they combat with you and win, all they have to do is win a battle with you, they're also going to get that bounty, which is kind of cool because in the original game, in the base level game, sometimes you play with a lot of Care Bears, and no one's doing that.
Yeah.
So this does inject a little bit more of a reason to maybe go,
Oh, it puts a target right on your back.
Exactly, literally puts a target.
And this whole system of the 2 empires kind of being at war is exemplified with these new merchant ships. If you've played the game, you know merchant ships, you can either make a deal with them or you can decide to fight them and battle them with your ship. In the expansion, in Letters of Marque, each one of these ships is aligned with one of the 2 empires. So if you meet a merchant ship out at sea and you make a deal with it, then you go up with that empire. But if you decide to battle it and sink it, you could go up with the opposing empire.
A little more
because they're happy with your performance. But if you try to fight them and lose, it could cause you to go down on those tracks. So there's a lot of different things that can happen with these new sets of merchant ships. And I think that's another way to kind of add to your decision process when you're looking at the merchant ships that are out there. Your decision is no longer just do I deal or do I fight? It's, well, do I want to deal with that one or that one? Because it's going to determine which track I go up. I think that's another really interesting addition.
Yeah, another big addition that we've kind of glossed over is how do you interact with all of these tokens, these prime cargo pieces? Well, every player is going to get a new crew member, so you're going to actually have another crew member called the Explorer. The Explorer starts off with the ability, when played, to simply discover one of these. You're just going to flip over either the water one or the island one in your space. It doesn't allow you to pick it up. Picking it up is just like I said earlier, just like normal cargo. You can pick it up out of the water for free with no restrictions, or you can pick it up off the island if you control it. But this Explorer is also upgradable, and he's going to have some other things that come into play where you could do it multiple times. You could discover multiple things on one turn, all the way up to and including where it allows you to treat something as something else. So say you have a bunch of black pearls, but you're wanting to go up with this empire. He has the ability to actually kind of treat them almost like a wild prime cargo when you're up here trading in with the empires.
Yeah, and of course there are new cards that are going to get slotted into the 4 different island rows that could potentially allow you to interact with these tokens as well. But other than your Explorer, you also have new ship upgrades. And these new ship upgrades are just going to let you explore for free. So just as you're moving along, you have the option to flip these tokens over. And you might be looking at this board and thinking, okay, well, there's only a certain amount of tokens on the board. Once they're gone, they're gone.
No.
But that's actually not the case. And I think the way they handle that is very interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool how they handled this. As you flip these over when you discover them, not only is it going to tell you what it is, and what ability it has, because it can be a range of abilities. But it's also going to have some of these markings along the sides of it. When you flip one like that, you're immediately going to also add another one face down in the corresponding space. So this tile here is telling me to add one to this ocean space in the water. So you'd add that to the water. There's going to be some that say add it to the island. There's even some of these tokens that say add it to the island to the east, but to the north, add it to the water. So these things are effectively going to multiply a little bit as you're discovering them. And of course, there's actions on the Explorer as well that allows you to just simply add one to a specific island.
Discover new ones,
kind of like the production in the original game if you've played it.
And there are some that don't add any at all. So you don't always know that you're getting some added on. So that allows this board to become repopulated because you're going to be using them a lot. Because again, you're either using them, discarding them just for the bonus that's on there. You're discarding them to move up these tracks. You're discarding them to gain benefit. Some of the card abilities, the card upgrades might have you turn in specific loot to go up or to do a special ability. Sometimes even moving multiple spaces up these tracks just by playing the right card at the right time.
Yeah, and ultimately moving up these tracks, you want to get all the way to the end because they've added yet another achievement. So in addition to all of the achievements on the harbor board, there's another achievement that is getting to the end of an empire track. So what this is effectively going to do also is it's going to give you, whenever you introduce more opportunities to get closer to the end of the game, it might speed up the game a little bit that way. Not the way it plays, but the length of the game might shrink because you're able to do a little bit more. Not to mention these bonuses up here potentially letting you progress a little more quickly on the achievements that already exist.
Yeah, that's really good because if you're looking for a way to make something happen and you just don't have it in the cards, literally, or you don't see a way to do it on the board, you can always look up there too and say, oh, that will get me the 2 extra cargo that I needed or that extra couple coins that I needed to do something. And you can just kind of see where you're at. But again, you're only getting these bonuses once because it's only when you move up that prime or your peak token that you actually get those benefits.
But that's a good point because these are also randomly placed at the beginning of the game. There's a handful of these. And you could look at the beginning of the game and go, oh, there's an interesting chain of combos that I could get.
You found one already for this. We set this up randomly for this new game, and there was 2 build actions right next to it, ship upgrades.
You could basically get a specific ship upgrade, and then the next one is to build one. Now, if you've ever played this game, you have to do a lot of upgrading of your bosun to get that happening. And if you can do that right away, that is a big jump on this achievement right here. I mean, you're already halfway there.
Yeah, so it can make the game a little shorter, which is probably good, especially for new players that, to have a little bit of a shorter game to learn. But they do say in the rule book, you can change the in-game condition to make it so you have to complete 5 achievements instead of 4. So that'll kind of balance out the game length a little bit.
Yeah, they've approached the rules in a very sandbox nature, just like the game itself. So that is effectively everything I think you need to know about Letters of Marque.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like
everything we know anyway.
We don't have the saga.
No.
So you're going to expect a lot of these things. If you've played in the other sagas, there's envelopes, there's boxes, there's things to unlock. There's probably going to be new Letters of Marque. There's probably going to be new tokens.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be just a wide variety of new cards added in as you play as well. So I'm really excited to get to see the saga part of this. But they're keeping it pretty tightly under wraps.
For sure. You'll have to check that out. Maybe they'll share some of those details on their campaign. But if you have any questions about what we've talked about here today, please make them in the comments below. We'll try to jump down there and answer what we can. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.
Bye.